Hey everyone, I'm Kyle Rocky, and you are listening to the Proposify Biz Chat. I'm here with Mark Fortune, who runs Fortune Marketing Inc. Mark is a former corporate VP who started his own business 4 years ago and now helps small businesses with their lead generation and marketing. And he's also a best-selling author and master duct tape marketing consultant. We're going to learn all about that and a whole lot more. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate you having me on.
Happy to have you. And first of all, for those listening and who are probably wondering, what is master duct tape marketing? Or just duct tape marketing?
So there's a book out in the world called Duct Tape Marketing, written by a friend of mine named John Jantz, and he built a business around that book to, working with small businesses directly himself, and then built a network of consultants like me. There's probably 100 or so of us across the world, but mostly in North America, the U.S. and Canada, who we all collaborate and work on building out small business marketing systems, following a very, a process that John put in place, and we all collaborate. I just got back from our annual meeting with all my colleagues in that world, and it's great because instead of a agency of just a couple of folks, it's as though I have a business of 100 consultants I can work with at any time. So it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. And so you've been doing this now for 4 years for your own business. You were corporate VP before that. What is the main problem that a lot of your clients experience, and what kind of do you help them with?
Yeah, so typically when I start an engagement, or when I first start talking to them, it almost always starts with a tactic, right? My website sucks, or I can't figure out social media, or name any litany of issues that they come up with. But almost invariably what really comes down to, or at least the clients that we really enjoy working with, is there's a strategy problem, a time overburden problem. When you're working with a small business owner, marketing's the 10th full-time job they've got, and they usually tackle it at about 9 o'clock on Sunday nights, right before they go to bed. So we're looking at putting in systems and strategies, even before tactics, to get those in place to really line out how they're going to get the work done, or how they're going to partner with others to get the work done, and build a system over time to generate consistent results. Because otherwise what we see is just a lot of haphazard sort of marketing idea of the week sort of things going on. And we really try to smooth this out and make their lives easier and give them some time back to do the other things they need to be doing in the business.
Mm-hmm. I identify with that as a former web design agency owner. We didn't have a marketing team. We didn't even have, really anybody who was dedicated to marketing the company. It was all your resources are focused on helping your clients, not yourself. So I identify with that so much, especially when it comes to blogging or podcasting like this, or anything that's really, in a marketing activity. Business owners often struggle with that. And they don't really even have, leads just kind of come in. It's almost like just magic. Or you hope they will, but there's you can't control how many. Somebody calls you, they email you, say, oh, I was talking to so-and-so, they referred you, said you're good, you want to grab a coffee. Like, that's kind of the lead system, if you will, for most small service businesses. How where do you start? So kind of step one, how do you go into, let's stop relying on just word of mouth and actually start controlling our own destiny a bit?
Sure. Well, we start, we're very big on the notion of strategy before tactics, right? So we'll get into what's going on in the business. Who are those best customers, right? Who is that ideal target customer? And, everyone with a pulse is not a targeting strategy, but, a lot of the times when I sit down with a small business owner, they know who their best customers are, right? Simple question. Think of your 10 best customers, the ones that if you had 100 more just like them, what do they look like, right? Do they refer you? Are they profitable? What services do they buy? And then we start building out personas or avatars or whatever term you want to use to describe them, to say, okay, now we're going to talk about the tactics that's going to go attract more of those people into your pipeline. And a lot of times, that sounds great. And one of the very first things I learned in this business is that everybody nods their heads, but in the meantime, they still need the phone to ring, right? They still need those leads coming in. So, to your point, almost invariably, 90% of the time when I work with a small business owner, their best lead source is word of mouth and referrals. But they are what we call happy accidents, right? They don't know where the next one's coming from. They don't have a system for going out and asking for referrals or generating referrals. So we'll look for ideas while we work on longer term, longer payoff sorts of things to help them generate new customers. And that's almost invariably referral-based type of marketing, right? Asking for referrals, putting together a system with strategic partners so that they know how to refer you and you know how to refer them, and just sort of creating that ecosystem around it.
Do you think that's something where business owners could be getting more referrals, but they don't because they're not actively asking their clients for referrals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ones I see who do it well have a system for doing it right. And it may just be a matter of creating some appointment time on their calendar each week of, I'm going to check in with these 2 or 3 referral partners or potential referral partners each week, and just making it a process and having the discipline to get it done. Sometimes it's much more sort of built out, whether if they've, especially in like a local services business, like a home services business, contractor, remodeler, that sort of thing, they'll have a system that motivates and many times gamifies it for staff to go out and ask for referrals, right? When you're working at house X, make sure you drop by house Y and say, we're going to be here. If you have any issues, give us a shout. And if you have any needs, that sort of thing. And enabling your customers to refer you is really, really a key part. And sometimes it's just a matter of focusing on it for a while, and they can really turn some new business over pretty fast.
I think a lot of clients, if you're happy with your service provider, your agency or whoever, you're often willing to refer people, but because we're all inherently selfish, we think only about ourselves, you're not likely to do it unless somebody asks you to do it, right? You're not just going to wake up and go, I really need to refer my agency to someone or whomever. So yeah, it's that, what does that system look like? So let's say you've got a list, you said take out a few hours a week to kind of work on referrals. If you're the business owner, what does that look like? Are you calling your clients and saying, do you know anybody who you could refer to me?
Yeah, I actually try to, generally speaking, I kind of steer them away from a, hey, can you hand me 5 names kind of referral sort of thing. I think it just sort of leaves a bad taste in most people's mouths, and most business owners aren't really comfortable doing that, at least the ones that I have worked with aren't. But what I do ask them to do is continue to add value, right? After an engagement, make sure you stay in touch. Yeah, give them a call every once in a while and just check in and say, hey, are things going all right? Many times we tie this in with reputation management and review sort of work, right? So ask your customers for those online reviews when you're done. Those are digital referrals, right? And this goes in, especially with local service provider type businesses, you can start to get into the Facebook groups and the next doors of the world where 90% of the questions are, hey, does anyone know a good fill in the blank, right? Whatever that is. Hopefully that's your business. I think it's a matter of staying top of mind with folks. And, the first rule of referral marketing is be referable, right? Deliver what you say you're going to deliver when you say you're going to deliver it, and do a good job with your business or service, and then have a process for encouraging people to talk about you.
So let's talk about finding your ideal client. I know I struggle with this when I used to run an agency, because I didn't have necessarily a target customer. My target customer was anybody who needs a website and has the budget to work with us.
Right, everybody with a check.
Right, so I remember trying to identify a target client by looking at the best clients and trying to find something, whether it was the industry or whatnot, that was similar. And I really struggle with it. I think a lot of people, I continue to talk to agency owners who know they need to niche down, because that's become very prominent nowadays. But they're afraid. Number one, they don't know how to niche down, or they don't know what similarities to actually look for in clients, whether that's client size or whatnot. And they're also afraid of, putting that flag in the ground and saying, we work with this type of client. What kind of recommendations would you have?
Yeah, so I think it's just absolutely critical to really any business to understand who it is you're trying to serve, because if you don't, for one, you'll chase every piece of business that looks like it might be anything, right? Anybody with a check, and that's it. You're never going to get on top of things that way. Plus, you commoditize yourself, right? And it's real easy when somebody's asking you, well, how are you different from this guy? And you don't have a good answer for that. You're going to end up competing on the simplest thing there is, which is price, which is a great way to go out of business in a hurry. What we do when we work with folks is I absolutely want to talk to their customers, right? Hand me 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, whatever we deem is relevant of your ideal customers, and we'll do a phone interview with them, right? And we'll get on the phone or we'll get on the Skype call and ask, why do you do business with XYZ provider? And the answer is almost always going to be, quality or service, right? So then you've got to probe into that. Like, well, can you help me, help me understand that a little better? Tell me a time when they've really come through for you. Can you tell me a story when they really delivered value for you? And what happens is sometimes you get big ahas where there's, the client thought their value was X and the customer says it's Y. Okay, well, then their messaging needs to change and their positioning needs to change. Most of the time, it's more just, well, we didn't even know that that was valuable to them, sort of stuff, right? And that's where you can get some real differentiation and begin to really articulate where you want to be. To your point about niching down, I think it's important that companies do that, and it's not because they're trying to get to such a small segment that they excel at only that, and it's not to the exclusion of all others, right? I think you need to have a system for, as your market evolves, what other niches should you be in? And niches can be horizontal. They could be, we're great web designers and we're going to go after that. Or they can be vertical. We're after service providers, or we want to work with attorneys, or whatever that might be. But you can't be everything to everybody. So I think it's important to have some targets and go after that. I just got done in a debate with some colleagues about, does that mean you need a separate website for every niche to market your business? And generally speaking, no.
Not a separate website, maybe a separate landing page.
Yeah, right. And that's sort of where we landed, right? You may have lead generation and referral tactics that drive people down a certain path, but your hub is your hub, right? And that's really sort of where you should stick.
There's a couple interesting things you said there. I wanted to write them down so I don't forget. I didn't sleep well last night, so I really I'm not sharp today, so I got to write this down. One thing that you mentioned was talking to clients and understanding how they value your service. Right. That is, I'd go so far as to call this a growth hack, if you will, because we did this for our SaaS company quite a while ago, where we asked everybody who signed up for our product and said, why did you sign up? Right. What problem are you looking to solve? We compiled all their answers and we analyzed them and we looked for keywords that were the same. We found that they were saying, so for us, it's proposal software. So they were saying, I want to streamline my proposal process. That wasn't something we came up with. That came out of the mouths of our customers. And so then we turned that into our headline on our website, and conversion shot up.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
If you use customers' words back to them, and I think a lot of agencies, especially small service businesses, don't think about it for some reason the same way maybe like a SaaS company does, where they have their elevator pitch that they've worked out, but they haven't necessarily tested it, or they haven't changed it based on customer feedback. So they're going in with the same elevator pitch, which could be, we make great websites, where your client goes, well, I chose them because they helped me, expand my conversion or something like that. Right. You know what I mean? Talking about the customer's pain more so than what you do. Yep.
And I think the natural tendency is to talk about yourself, and it's not from an ego standpoint. It's just that's what you're most comfortable with, right? I need to convince you that I'm the guy to help you, right? When the real way to do that is to have some empathy and understand that I understand your issues and I can solve your problems, right? That's rarely where the conversation starts.
For sure. I talked to Jason Swank a while back, and he mentioned something great, which was that a lot of companies want themselves to be Batman. And so that's kind of how they position themselves, but it's actually your client, that makes your client Robin, and nobody wants to be Robin. Yeah. So you want your client to be Batman, you want to be Alfred.
Right. Yeah.
No doubt. Trusted advisor, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's a great analogy. And, everything that's out there these days, you're hearing about storytelling and guiding stories and all of that. The hero is not you. The hero is the client, right? You should be more in the role of the guide, right? You're Alfred. You're the trusted advisor. I completely agree.
You also said something interesting around price, and you said if you compete on price, you'll quickly go out of business. I think a lot of people still don't get this. They hear it, and then they still go to their client and they use price as a way to differentiate. Hey, we're not as expensive as the other guys, or hey, if we knock the price down, maybe would you want to work with us? What are your thoughts?
Don't. I think if you're going to do something like that, think of it as an intro offer, as a trial offer, in the digital marketing world, a tripwire sort of thing, right? Think of it as an initial purchase in order to begin a relationship. If you really feel like that's your strategy, use it as an intro, but don't if your most valuable service or most valuable product is the one you're discounting all the time, you are just setting yourself up for failure. Like, just please, for the love of all things good, don't do that. Figure out how you can chunk off a piece of that and create an intro offer for somebody, right? Or a free demo or a trial or a 30-day, 90-day, introductory offer sort of thing. That's fine, because I think it is important to get commerce started, right? Get that transaction going. But if all you can do to win business is discount and lower your price past the point of your ability to serve, you're just killing yourself. And it's just not a good way to do it. Now, it's easy for me to say, your knees will knock the first time you turn business down on the basis of price, right? I've done it. I'm sure you've been through it too. That is nerve-wracking to tell a customer, I don't want your business. But sometimes you got to do that. Not all customers are profitable.
I think a lot of different people, business owners, some salespeople have the mentality that having a customer is better than not having a customer. So if the customer goes, that's more than I wanted to spend, what can you do for me? That fear drives them to say, okay, well, tell me how much you'll pay for it. Or
right. Well, never mind. It really wasn't worth that anyway. Now do this.
It's this idea that it's better to have their business than to not have their business. And I think that's actually one of the most dangerous traps to go down as a business owner. Sometimes it is better to turn people away so that you can focus now your time and energy on the right clients and the right leads. Yeah. There's that opportunity cost that people need to get into their heads, that sometimes you don't want a customer.
Right. And the fact of the matter is, if that's where the conversation went, you've missed a value step somewhere in the continuum, right? You missed an opportunity to articulate or communicate your value accurately, that wouldn't come up. If that's what always comes up, you're calling on the wrong folks. It's just not. Let a competitor lose money on them. Matter of fact, I've referred business that I knew was going to be tough to serve to competitors. Like, hey, you need to go work with Bob. He's better at that kind of work for what you need than I am. And I'm not trying to tank his business. It's just, I think he's a better fit for your solution, and you're still trying to help him. I think everybody's worth helping in some form. It just may not be worth getting them to pay you to do it, because
I would try to tank Bob's business for sure.
Well, it wasn't Bob; it's a guy named John, but that's different.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. You hit something there, which is that you didn't communicate the value. I think when you're competing on price, then the customer naturally sees you and your competitors as identical. The only difference is price. So if you're seen as a commodity, you're in a losing game. And a lot of service businesses still play the hourly price game.
Right.
And because when your client looks at hourly pricing or day pricing or whatever, that's you thinking about your own time as opposed to what value does the customer get. So do you have any thoughts on value-based pricing and how people can communicate that better?
I think it's so. I don't charge by the hour for anything, right? And because the base metric means that our incentives are misaligned, right? My incentive is to get more hours on you, and your incentive is to get fewer, Mr. Client. So it just doesn't work. I think value-based pricing is a wonderful concept, and I try to, and in some form, that's how we do everything we do, right? There's a set rate for what we do, and there's our margin and our costs are baked into that, so I know where the value is. There's a lot of great systems out there that, Paul Rotzer, I think is his name, the 2020 thing, and it's all point-based, right? Instead of paying dollars per month, you're buying a set block of points.
Where is that? I never heard of that.
It's Paul, I'm going to mispronounce his last name, Rotzer. I think it's Roetzer, and I think it's Agency 2020 or PR 2020, something like that. If you look up Roetzer, Paul, you'll find him.
I will find that later and post a link in the show notes. For those
and they do their services on a basis of points, right? You buy 500 points a month, and certain services detract from those points, and they're like rollover minutes in the wireless world, right? You bank points into future months, so it sort of removes the hourly stigma billing rate sort of thing. I think that's it's a good idea. I think it's, from what I've read and seen about it, I think it's difficult to implement because you have really got to understand your costs if you're going to do that, right? You absolutely have to know what a unit of input is for the unit of output that you're getting back for staff time or blog writing or web design or whatever it is. Right. But I like that idea. I'm not as big. Theoretically, share of the gain sounds great, right? If I do X, Y, and Z, and you gain this many new customers, I get paid per customer. I love it theoretically. It's a wonderful, beautiful idea. I think it's really, really hard to implement because, again, many times when I've seen this happen in other parts of my career over the years, you end up in arguments with the clients over who gets attribution, right? And you start arguing over, well, John didn't come in because of your efforts. He came in because of my efforts. So you don't get credit for that one. You're like, oh, God. Instead of arguing over monthly, hourly invoices, you're arguing over who gets credit for which customer. And that's a tough thing to do. But I think as an agency owner or as a business owner, the most important thing is to really understand your costs and really understand what problems you're going to solve for your customers and price to the value of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to use the example, so with my business being a software business, we have pricing tiers. We use the amount of proposals you write a month as sort of the value metric. The more if you only write 1 or 2 proposals a month, you're not necessarily going to get as much value out of the system as if you write 100 and have a huge sales team. So that's kind of how we price it. But if we wanted to go true value prop, we'd say when you close a deal,
right,
then we get a percentage of that. But like you said, it gets a little tricky.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that it eventually leads to misaligned incentives as well, right? Maybe not so much but I don't know. I'd have to think about that. But I totally understand the software usage model. That's a good way to do it.
For these small businesses, what do you recommend in terms of lead generation? Are you recommending they're doing kind of the digital marketing stuff, Facebook advertising, Google AdWords, that kind of stuff?
Well, it's eventually, yes, probably, depending on the business. But to start with, I really want to get in and understand what's happening today, what works and doesn't work. As we talked before, more often than not, there's a decent referral base. Well, can we goose that a little bit to, get some activity and positive results flowing sooner rather than later? But we're really looking at what's the best fit for the systems and the business that they're in. If they're highly intent driven, right? If it's a plumber is a good example. If you're searching for plumber, Little Rock, Arkansas, odds are you got a problem somewhere, right? That's highly intent driven. Yeah. So pay per click is a good way to look at that, potentially, or long tail searches thereof, right? But there's other businesses that aren't as immediately intent driven, and you're trying to build an audience and build a base over time. And digital is usually where we end up. Doesn't have to be, but it usually is, simply because that's easiest to show value and ROI, and it's the thing business owners are by far the most confused about, right? Totally. And frustrated and challenged by. But we never leave out, if it's a fit, direct mail these days. Sometimes a very creative, good direct mail piece, I don't mean thousands of postcards, can get some good return, right? Events may work depending on the business you're in. We look for the right mix based on what's right for the customer. Now, having said that, we don't do any broadcast, or almost none. It's usually too expensive. It's almost always too expensive for what they want to get to, and at least in a small business world, too hard to measure.
Yes. I think the takeaway there is that you don't turn away a channel just because it's old and it's not new.
Yeah.
Like you said, direct mail can still work. And
sure, I've actually
may not work.
Yeah, that's for sure. At least I haven't seen it.
I wouldn't want to see a plumber's Snapchat feed or whatever,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just don't really know where that's going to head just yet. Now, someday, who knows? It may be there soon. But right now, no. I mean, I'm just trying, a lot of times we're trying to figure out how to spell SEO for our clients and make it work for them, right? And then we'll figure out how to work on virtual reality and AI and everything else later down the road.
Now, Mark, you worked on a book, you co-authored, Local Lead Generation. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Obligatory post right here. Here it is.
The physical copy.
Yeah. It's on Kindle too. So some duct tape marketing colleagues of mine and I wrote this book a little while back, and it was all, we got together and we were at one of our annual conferences, and we got to thinking, well, what's going on in your business? What frustrations do your leads have? That sort of thing. What problems are you solving? And it didn't take long to figure out we're all addressing the same issues for local business owners. And, how can we share efforts and collaborate and take the best of all of our thinking and get that out to all these folks for the problems we're solving? And one of my co-authors had written a book, so he was very familiar with the publishing process and how to work on getting a book physically published and digitally published and all of that sort of thing. So we took it ended up being about a 4 to 5 month project where we met constantly and wrote constantly and edited even more constantly and came up with the Small Business Owner's Guide to Local Lead Generation. So it's great. It's a calling card piece for the business. I don't think I'm challenging Seth Godin or Malcolm Gladwell in sales numbers anytime soon, but it's fun to be out there and have an Amazon page.
And that audience who would benefit from it may not know who Seth Godin is, right?
Right.
Malcolm
That's
Gladwell,
exactly true. Yeah, but I could go to any client meeting and hand them one or run campaigns to it, and you'll absolutely get value. Matter of fact, I usually tell clients, just read this and do everything in it. You won't need me.
Right.
I'm betting that they, but
Well, yeah, you build up that authority in their mind too, right? And
it's all about credibility and authority.
Absolutely. I have one final question. I know it's on everybody's mind. Is Fortune your real name?
I don't get asked that near as much as you might think.
Really?
It is. It's not a stage name. That's or at least it wasn't for me. So maybe in some generations past, it was at it. No, that's the family name, and that made naming the business really easy.
Yeah, naming the business easy. If I was running a marketing agency, I would definitely change at least my middle name to Fortune. I'd be Kyle Fortune Racky.
Yeah, and my middle initial Z, so I got calling cards all over the place.
Oh man, that's awesome. So if people want to learn more from you, Mr. Fortune, where should they go?
Sure. Fortune Marketing Inc., fortunemarketinginc.com is my main web address. The book's address is localleadgenbook.com, and both those sites have all the links to social, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that good stuff. So that's a great place to start.
That's awesome. There will be links to this in the show notes if you go to proposify.com. Thanks so much for your time being on the show today, Mark. Super
Thank
enjoyable.
you, Kyle. I really appreciate you having me on.